Welcome, I'm Zoe Elton, and this is Mind the Gap, Mill Valley Film Festival's Equity Initiative, and our program in honor of filmmaker Dawn Porter, who is receiving the Mind the Gap Award as our Documentarian of the Year. So in 2020, this extraordinary year, Dawn has released not one, but two feature films. Now that's a great achievement in and of itself. But each of her films is right on the pulse of this time. In John Lewis, Good Trouble, and in The Way I See It, Dawn lets us see. We see the life and times and the importance of John Lewis. We see Pete Souza's journey with President Obama. And in letting us see, her moving images open the door to our understanding of these times, and her work is moving. I'm realizing as we do this virtual tribute to her, that in real time, Dawn would have received a standing ovation. So I've been thinking about how we can give her a virtual standing ovation. So I'm going to ask you, whenever and wherever you see this, please go online and post and post and post. We'll give you hashtags as well, so that we let Dawn get the virtual love as well as the actual love. So joining us for this Mind the Gap Award program is our host, Jazz Tangcay of Variety, actor and The Way I See It producer, Laura Dern, who is the recipient of the Mind the Gap Award in 2019, and our Mind the Gap Documentarian of the Year, Dawn Porter.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Jazz.
Congratulations on your award for Documentarian of the Year. I'm curious, the world has changed since you and I last spoke. Pre-election, post-election. Have you gone back to watch either of your documentaries? You know I'm going to ask you that.
That's a great question. And it's great to see you again. I'm glad we get to talk every week. Today I did an event with Pete Souza for the NAACP, and they showed the trailer for The Way I See It and clips of the movie. And it made me so emotional. I was actually shocked at how emotional it made me to see that film, because, when I was making it, it was hopeful, but the answer, wasn't written. That final chapter was still in doubt. So seeing now, thinking that we could return to decency in leadership, it was very emotional. After the Way I See It premiered, strangers were writing to Pete and talking about how much they didn't realize they missed stability. They didn't realize how much something that was maybe far away from them physically could occupy so much mental energy negatively. So it's pretty emotional. And then for Mr. Lewis, watching Georgia turn probably blue just slayed me. I mean, I just kept thinking about, he just would be giddy with delight over seeing the people that came out, and Stacey Abrams and the other activists in Georgia, many of whom are female, really deserve so much credit for activating the vote. But that's what he worked his life for. So it's a little bittersweet because he can't see it, but I just have a deep certainty and calm that this is exactly what he lived for. And, I'm gonna get crying. So his sacrifices were not in vain. Mm-hmm. That's what that vote means. And it's important.
It's beautiful. I have to say, I went back to watch The Way I See It after the election, before our conversation. So emotional, because like you said, it's like hope has been restored. hearing President-elect Biden speak, hearing Vice President Kamala Harris speak.
I mean, look at that.
What was that like for you on Saturday night, hearing her speak?
She began her speech with a quote from John Lewis. And it's one of the many, many things that I admire about her is that she always reflects on the people that got her here, the ancestors that made the way for her, that gave her something to reach for. But I must say, you know, the presidency of the current occupant of the White House has been so terrible that the first, thing you're thinking about is really just getting rid of moving on. So to have this woman, this strong, capable leader in the form of a woman who is brown, I mean, it's too much. So I think in some ways it still hasn't hit me, how really momentous this is. And maybe that's good. Maybe like we're seeing women in so many powerful positions, Secretary Clinton, who should have been President Clinton, that maybe we've gotten past the first, the celebration of the first. And we can celebrate all of the pieces of her that make her the perfect person for this job, So, but I love her.
Who doesn't? On the subject of firsts, what is your first memory of Mr. John Lewis? Like, do you have one?
Yes. I remember being in, it was probably like third grade, and hearing about civil rights. I remember going on a trip to museum and seeing like some kind of like exhibit that was about him, and then I remember in sixth grade I wrote an essay about civil rights that I mentioned him in. And it got selected by the principal to be read over the loudspeaker. Remember loudspeakers? Mm-hmm. So, at that time, he was really a person who he was a chapter in a history book, paragraph in a history book. He wasn't a person to me. So then for him to become a person, that's part of what I want to do with this film, is make him a person for everyone, not just, this picture in a history book, but a real living person.
Yeah.
I would see those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. And I would ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents why. And they would say, boy, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. But in 1955, 15 years old, the action of Rosa Parks, the words and leadership of Dr. King inspired me to get in trouble, what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. It's time for all good people in this state, here in Dallas, to get in trouble. I got arrested a few times during the 60s. 40 times. And since I've been in Congress, another 5 times. And I'm probably going to get arrested again for something. But my philosophy is very simple. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, say something, do something, get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble.
We organized in Nashville, John Lewis, Diane Nash, and the others.
It was on February the 13th in We had the very first sit-in here in Nashville. And I took my seat at the counter. I asked the waitress for a hamburger and a Coke.
I said, I'm sorry, our management does not allow us to serve niggers in here.
Altogether, it was a moving feeling within me that I was sitting there demanding a God-given right. And in spite of all of this, I had to keep loving the people who denied me service.
They come in and they sit down, and we're not used to them sitting down beside us because I wasn't raised with them. I never have lived with them, and I'm not going to start now.
First, we had to change. And since we were no longer going to accept segregated lunch counters, it was over with. We protested because we had changed. We continued to give them the opportunity to also change because we believed that it was possible.
I'm sure so many people approached him to tell his story. What was it that you said, or did he tell you in conversation that made him sit down with you for this? How did you convince him?
Yeah, he had, so really that was, it was a number of things that came together in a surprising way. So Erica Alexander had been working with his office to kind of guide a film into becoming, and she's the person who called me. I was developing something separately from them. So it was like, and you know what, I have to say that this happens more often than people realize, like multiple people, it was just his time for his story to be told. So, when they approached me, I was like, let's do it together. And so the other thing, like Mr. Lewis is very trusting, very open person. So the real hurdle for me was getting through his staff, in particular, his team who was, very protective of him. And I think once they knew like what the vision was, it was to really celebrate him in the present as well as the past. I think that they started to understand that. And then, because I had featured him in other projects, like I think he had a familiarity. I think he really enjoyed my celebrating Bobby Kennedy. I think that was important to him. So we just kind of fell into it right away. It was like I had been talking to him forever. He's just that kind of person who, I do think also that, and I may have said this to you before, that Mr. Lewis as a person, as a generation was very familiar to me. He's the generation of my grandparents. And, I grew up going to church with my grandmother, and you behave a certain way to people, a certain level of respect that has nothing to do with how much money or power or fame they have. It has to do with them as an older generation. And that I couldn't help but relate to him that way. And I think we, like I would never call him John. I mean, that just like would not occur to me ever. And I think he appreciated the respect, but not reverence, that I really wanted to let him tell the story of his life as he remembered it. And I think that was probably appealing. But really he's a very easygoing person, he would have let me do anything. His staff was like, no. But he was like, I was like, can I come to your house? Yes. Can I come? At one point he was like, I'm going to meet with the speaker. Do you want to come? And I was like, yes. And his staff was like, no. So I think it was a matter of timing for both of us. It was the story he was ready to tell, and the story I really wanted to hear and help him tell.
Yeah. So in contrast, you've got Pete, who is, he's taking photos. He's behind the camera.
Yeah.
How easy was it to approach him and be like, I want to tell your story, put you down?
Pete, on the other hand, was really used to being, first of all, in control, because if you're the person who holds the camera, you control what happens. But also he was used to being fly on the wall. He wasn't used to people asking him what he thought about things. And Laura and Jamie and Evan did like yeoman's work to convince him. He said no many times. And then I think they were persistent, and he thought about it and thought this movie could do a lot of good, to be able to see the examples of decency in the White House at this time. I think he was becoming increasingly afraid and worried about the Trump presidency. And I think that's what ultimately made him do it. But he said to me, it's not about me. It's not about me. Like, you don't have to touch my family. It's not about me. So there was a lot of convincing in his part. But I think he's very happy with how it came out. His family is happy. And I would not say Pete is shy, but he's private. And so I think he's finding the balance between fame and privacy. And he's still finding that balance, which is ironic because all that we ever want is like full access, to everybody. like, can I stay with you? Can I sleep with you? Can I wake up in the morning with you? And and that's what we live for.
In the documentary, he's obviously worried about what he sees happening, which is why, he's spoken out about it. But have you spoken to him since the election? And
I just spoke to him today, and I have to say, he is so happy. And he's calmer than I've ever seen him, except when his granddaughter was born. That was, I think, one of the happiest days of his life. And he said even she's his main subject of photography these days. Like he just takes pictures of his granddaughter. But he's like a lot of us. It's like a weight has been lifted. And I think he feels like he can get on with his life, that he never wanted to. He says this line in the movie that on January 20th, 2021, his book Shade will have outlived its usefulness. And I think that he was just waiting for it not to be necessary anymore. Yeah. And so I think he's kind of freed. He's also, he's very, very supportive of minority voices. He's very, very attuned to what his images have meant to the Black community in America and around the world. And I wonder what he's going to do next, because I do think he's enjoyed the contributions he's been able to make to, our collective imagination about, the role of people of color in this country.
This is Jacob, Philadelphia. At one point, Jacob's mom said, Mr. President, Jacob has a question for you. So Jacob's kind of like, Mr. President, my friends tell me that my haircut is just like yours. And with that, President Obama bent over, Jacob touched his head, click, I got one photo and it was gone.
That image was what Barack Obama had said to us 2 years ago in an office in Chicago. That kid literally can't even believe, even though he's seeing the President of the United States in the Oval Office, until he can feel his hair, he doesn't truly believe that he's just like me. That single image stands for so much more. It stands for how kids will see themselves differently forever.
But two, I think it tells you something about Barack Obama, that at the behest of a 5-year-old kid, you would go ahead, bend over, and let that kid touch your head like that. The job as the chief official White House photographer is to visually document the presidency for history. So when inauguration rolled around, I had in the back of my mind, for the journey I was about to take, this thought: make authentic photographs. Think mood, emotion, context. Be ready for the fleeting moments, both big and small. My goal was to create the best photographic archive of a president that had ever been done. Lasting images for history.
So there's this, you were still making John Lewis good trouble when The Way I See It came up. Like, talk about the overlap and just how the two are so connected.
Yeah.
Like, in that connection.
I mean, yeah, I was probably like 2/3 done with John Lewis movie, but it's not the ideal time to start another project. But I could not resist. I mean, meeting Pete for the first time, first of all, who doesn't want to work with Laura Dern? I mean, and she's quite persuasive. She's persuasive because she's enthusiastic. And because she's an artist, the first thing she says is, we want you to do what you want. You know, like, we love your work and we want you to do what you want. And that's like really important. And, you know, to have a woman who is like strong and making decisions and really modeling, you know, how to take control of your life for other women, that was very appealing. You know, Evan had just produced Free Solo, which was a monster smash. So like, these people know how to make a movie and they know how to block and tackle for artists. So all of that was very appealing. But the thing that was the most important was Pete flipped open his laptop. He started going through those pictures and talking about them, just talking about them in a conference room. And I was crying. And I thought, you know, people will respond to this. If we do it right, people will respond to it. And that is, I thought that they would, but like, the responses actually exceeded my dreams. And so I think that we, you know, at least in America, we're having a collective, may not be universal, but it's a lot of us are really appalled and holding our breath and just hoping for, you know, leadership that reflects values of inclusivity and humanity.
Yeah, we've been lacking it for the last 4 years. So every time it's, you know, there's a conference with, you know, Biden or Harris, you're like, oh, I can breathe.
I mean, we're like, Paris rang the bells of Notre Dame. I mean,
the world is happy.
The world is happy.
I know you've got to go, and sadly we have to wrap it up, but what was it like? What did you take away from being in the presence of Mr. John Lewis? Because just watching the documentary, hearing his words, you have hope. Like, it's that little glimmer of hope that we had before we knew where we would be. But you've been in his presence.
Mr. Lewis is the most optimistic person I've ever met. And he was very clear-eyed about problems, but also deeply believed in the power of human beings to empathize and care for others. And he really showed me that so much is a matter of your perspective. You know, when he would see a problem, he would think, how can I help? How can I help? And he managed to view so many different situations with an approach to what can I do, rather than what's overwhelming. And I will tell you, my younger son is now 17. When he had a friend from middle school who wrote to me an email and said he saw the movie and would I speak to his high school class. So I said, yes, I would. And he did a beautiful job, and he organized questions, and it was really nice. And then he wrote me a thank you for doing it. And he said, I was watching your movie, and then in the conversation, you said, there's always something that you can do. There's always one little thing. Even if you are a kid, you can do something. And I thought about what I could do, and I volunteered to work at the polls. And I just thought, like, that's the power of Mr. Lewis. Is some 16-year-old kid is like, instead of being overwhelmed and depressed and scared, is looking for how he can be powerful. And he felt so good about doing that. That one little thing helped him push away the darkness for just a little while. And I just thought, like, that's Mr. Lewis. That's what he does for people. So,
oh, I love that. That's so perfect. Well, once again, Dawn, thank you so much. It's always good seeing you. Congratulations on the Mind the Gap.
You're such a kind sweetheart for always volunteering for everything. So thank you so much.
No, I love it. Thank you very much. And thanks to Mill Valley Film Festival, and congratulations on the Mind the Gap Award Documentarian of the Year. I mean, 2 documentaries in a year. Important ones too.
Thank you so much, Jess. Good to see you.
Thanks, Dawn. Good seeing you.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Dern, and it is my honor to be joining the Mill Valley Film Festival again. I have loved this film festival. It feels like family to me, and been many years. I'm sad we're not all together in person, but our hearts are. And I could think of no greater opportunity and privilege than to be presenting the Mind the Gap Award to my colleague, hero, and now buddy, Dawn Porter, for her amazing work this year. This Mind the Gap Award is going to her as Documentarian of the Year. She has done so much extraordinary work in her life as an artist, an advocate, a journalist, a documentarian, and human. But this year, we are all praising her particularly to, in one year, and yes, amidst a pandemic, during a pandemic, she finished not one, but 2 films. Her film, John Lewis, Good Trouble, which is an extraordinary tribute to a man that has shaped America's integrity and empathy. And The Way I See It, a film that I'm lucky to be a producer on, and so had an inside look at Dawn shaping the story of White House photographer Pete Souza over the course of 2 administrations with both Reagan and Obama, and the story inside the story that I so longed to see, both as a person and as a producer. And Dawn found her way to discovering that and giving us that, and giving us as Americans the opportunity to see what true leadership looks like at a time we so desperately needed it. I am so moved that Mill Valley Film Festival has dedicated its commitment to really honoring gender and diversity equality, and working diligently in their programming, and with the Mind the Gap Award, really connecting to the voices that we so need to hear from. And so I'm grateful to their incredible work and service to film. And I am so blessed, Dawn, to have met you over martinis and found a fast friend, but to work with a colleague that when you're done, you discover that they're heroic in their relentless pursuit for the perfect act of service and compassion. And that's what you do as an artist and filmmaker. And it is my honor to raise a pretend martini glass and toast you for your Mind the Gap Award. And I love and adore you, and I can't wait to make more movies with you. But for now, I just like to celebrate you with this award.
I want to thank Mill Valley, of course. I too love this festival and how it brings world-class cinema to the Bay Area, and also for its commitment to underrepresented voices. I've been so privileged to work with the festival in that capacity. This year was really tough. And I think one of the things that got me and my family through it was to be able to do this work. And that work doesn't happen without producers and people like you, Laura, who do not ask for thanks or recognition, but lead with generosity. And as a filmmaker, as you know, as an artist, the thing that we rely on is the encouragement of others that we respect. And to work with you and Jamie and Evan this year in such a difficult year, when we are, I don't know if people know this, but one of the things that I admire so much about Laura is that you are at the top of your game artistically at a certain age, and you are a mother, and all of those things are important to you. And knowing that you are a mother of children of color, and that you quietly and fiercely work to make sure that this world is better for all of us, but particularly for them. I know this is like accepting the award, but I just want to say so much about how incredible it is to have the faith of one of the greatest working artists in our time. And that has meant so much to me.
That's so sweet and beautiful. And I'm going to tell people in the future, if you are ever asked to give Dawn Porter an award, she's just going to basically give you an award. She's basically going to compliment you for, you're very sweet. But we are also here to pay tribute to your incredible legacy of work that will continue for so many years as you shed light in the places that we aren't always looking. And so I am so grateful for your guidance and the teacher that you are through your art, while you are also a mother and an activist and an advocate and a professor in the area, and doing such extraordinary work beyond the work we're here to honor you for.
So, I was, when Mill Valley, when Zoe called, and Zoe, I also had the pleasure of meeting and seeing what she has done for this festival and for this community, which is astounding and so needed. The arts are so needed at this time. And I was thinking about one of the things that I love about all the projects that I've been privileged to work on this in this period is, what they say about America, and what they say about possibility. And John Lewis's story is so American. It is so, such a story of the beauty of the possible. And I think when I think about what Pete Sousa was able to show us, that movie is about decency. It's about humanity. So, which means it's about all of us. But I also was thinking, and I would like to, honor my ancestors in thinking about how I came to be here. So this is what I wanted to read. Zoe said I could read something. So this is what I wanted to read. This is about William Drew Robeson. My younger son's name is William. It was going to be William Drew, but then my husband said, I couldn't pick the whole name, so we compromised. So, but Will is my younger child. So born into slavery as William Drew Robeson in 1844. When he was 15, he escaped slavery with his brother Ezekiel through the Underground Railroad, and they made their way to Philadelphia in the free state of Pennsylvania. He then went on to serve in the Union Army and to join the effort to end slavery in the South. And then out of slavery, he studied at Lincoln College and received a Bachelor of Sacred Theology in 1876. Where then he met Maria Louisa Bustle, who was a Quaker suffragist and club woman. But this is the part that really always moves me. Robeson was ousted as a minister of his church after 20 years of service. He was said to have aligned himself on the wrong side of a church fight, having refused to bow to pressure from the white residents of Princeton, in that he refused to stop speaking out against social injustice. But upon his dismissal, he bypassed any need to recriminate or rebuke. As I review the past, he said, and think upon many scenes, my heart is filled with love. Do not be discouraged, he said to his parishioners. Do not think your past work is in vain. So I just was thinking about how remarkable it is that, I'm descended from people who were slaves, who made their way to university, who stood for their principles even when it was dangerous, and, made it possible for me to be here and to tell these stories and to try my best to tell truths. So I'm very proud of that. I'm so proud to have worked on these projects and to have these opportunities this year, and to follow in your footsteps to receive this award means the world to me. So thank you, Zoe, for making this possible, and thank you for everyone at Mill Valley. And I will do my best to continue to tell the truth.